Anil had always waited for someone to tell him he was good enough. A teacher, a coach, a parent, a friend, anyone. He was smart, kind, even talented in quiet ways. But he didn't believe it, because no one ever said it out loud. He hesitated before answering questions, apologized before sharing his ideas, and when someone praised him, he smiled, but didn't believe it deep down. He lived his life like he was standing in a long line, waiting for permission to begin. One day, after missing an opportunity to apply for a leadership position, again, he sat alone in the corner of the school library, frustration quietly building inside him. Mr. Nair, the school's old debate coach, noticed him and sat down beside him. "You are the right fit for that position," he said. Anil shrugged. "I didn't think I was ready." Mr. Nair didn't argue. He simply placed a chessboard on the table. "Let's play," he said. Anil raised an eyebrow. "I'm not good at chess." The old man replied calmly, "You've said two things in the last minute. I didn't think I was ready, and I'm not good. You speak of yourself like a stranger. Let's change that." They played in silence for a while. Anil moved slowly, hesitantly. Each decision felt like a risk. Mr. Nair, on the other hand, moved with quiet confidence, calm, focused, present. Halfway through the game, Mr. Nair leaned back and asked, "What do you think is the biggest mistake people make while playing chess?" Anil thought for a second and said, "Rushing?" "No," Mr. Nair replied. "It's assuming the other player always knows more." Anil looked up. "That's how most people live," he continued. "They assume others are smarter, stronger, better. So they play safe. They hold back. They wait." Anil looked at the board, at his unplayed pieces, still stuck at the back, still waiting. "Do you see the pattern?" Mr. Nair asked. Anil nodded, slowly. He wasn't just losing at chess. He was losing in life the same way, by sitting back, waiting for signs, waiting for validation. That night, Anil couldn't sleep. Not because he was upset, but because something had shifted. Not dramatically, just enough to make him wonder, what if I stopped waiting? He didn't have the answer yet, but for the first time, he was asking the right question. The next day at school, Anil did something different. During a group project, when the teacher asked for a volunteer to present, he raised his hand. It wasn't dramatic. His voice wasn't booming, but it was steady. He didn't look around to see who approved. He didn't wait to feel ready. He just began. Later, one of his classmates said, "You spoke really clearly." Anil didn't brush it off. He simply said, "Thanks." That afternoon, he returned to the library and found Mr. Nair shelving books. "I raised my hand today," Anil said quietly. Mr. Nair didn't turn. He just smiled and replied, "Sometimes belief is built by doing the thing before you believe you can." Anil sat down at the same table as yesterday. "I used to think belief comes from proof," he said. Mr. Nair finally looked at him. "And now?" "I think proof comes from action." The old coach nodded. That's the moment it begins, not when others see it in you, when you see it in yourself. That evening, Anil stood in front of his mirror, not to judge his posture, not to fix his expression, just to see himself, without shrinking. And for once, he didn't look away. The following week, Anil started making small choices differently. He stopped second-guessing every answer he gave in class. He stopped apologizing for having ideas. He stopped waiting for someone to say, "You're ready." And slowly, something changed, not in how others treated him, but in how he carried himself. He didn't walk faster, he didn't speak louder, but his steps felt more his words more chosen. One day, after school, Mr. Nair handed him a folded piece of paper. It read, "Belief isn't loud, it's quiet decisions repeated daily." Anil stared at it for a while, then tucked it into his notebook without a word. That night, while doing homework, he paused. Not because he was stuck, but because he caught himself thinking, "I can't figure this out." But then, he didn't stop. He just took a breath, tried again. No drama, no perfection, just progress. And maybe that's what belief really is, not a feeling, but a habit. A quiet agreement you make with yourself, over and over. I will show up, even when I'm unsure. A few days later, the school announced a storytelling competition. Anil saw the flyer. He read it twice, then folded it and put it in his bag. He didn't decide right away. He didn't tell anyone. But that night, after dinner, he sat at his desk and began to write. It wasn't perfect. The story wasn't grand, but it was his. For the next week, he practiced quietly, reading out loud to himself, rewriting lines, not because someone told him to, but because something inside him wanted to try. When the day came, he stood on stage, hands shaking, breath tight, but he stood. And when he finished his story, there was a moment of silence, then claps, then smiles. But the loudest thing Anil heard was inside himself. Not applause, not praise, just this quiet voice that said, "You did it." That night he opened his notebook and wrote just one sentence. "I believed, so I acted. I acted, so I became." Because belief doesn't arrive, it builds. And every time he chose to step forward, even with doubt in his pocket, he laid one more brick. Weeks later, Anil walked past the same hallway where the flyer had once hung. It was gone now. The event was over. But something had stayed. Not the applause, not the moment, but the belief. He didn't think of himself as the quiet kid anymore. He didn't need someone to remind him of his worth, because now he had seen what he could do when he trusted himself enough to try. Mr. Nair found him in the library, sitting at their usual table. "You're different," he said. Anil smiled. "I feel different. Do you still wait for someone to tell you you're ready?" Anil shook his head. "I tell myself now." The old man nodded, satisfied, then slid a small piece of paper toward him. On it were just 3 words: "Keep showing up." Anil folded it carefully, placed it inside his notebook, and stood to leave. As he walked down the hallway, he didn't feel taller. He didn't feel invincible, but he felt aligned, and that was enough. Because once you stop waiting for permission, you begin living like you've already earned it.